Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome to episode 4 of Infertile AF. I'm so excited about this episode. I talked to Alison, who is an incredible person. She's also a doula in New York City. She is a friend of a friend that I had coffee with a couple days before we recorded this episode, and I feel like I could have talked to her for 24 hours. She is so funny and so interesting and smart and cool. And I just fell in love with her, and I know that you guys will too. There's so many good moments in this episode, but one thing that she talked about, which I was so thrilled that she was willing to open up about, was having an abortion earlier in life. And then later, when she was having trouble staying pregnant or getting pregnant, having infertility issues, she really felt guilty about the abortion that she had had and started thinking it was punishment for what she had done and karma. And I was so impressed with her for talking so openly about that because it's such a private thing. But I know that so many people have gone through that. So I can't thank her enough for opening up about that. And I know a lot of people out there can relate. And other than that, she was just funny and had a lot of great details. And at the end of the episode, since she's a doula, she answers some questions about being a doula, and I learned a lot. So I hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, this is Alison's infertility story. Okay, so hi, Alison.
Hi.
Thank you for doing this today.
Thank you for having me.
You are an amazing doula, and I want to talk a little bit more about that later. But first, what's so interesting about you is that you are also have your own infertility story, and you went through it yourself. So let's start with that. Tell me about your infertility journey and when it all first started.
Well, we'll start with my first pregnancy. I got pregnant after I had divorced my first husband. In a very long, complicated story. I'll spare you all the details.
I want all the details.
You want all the details?
Well, as many details as you're willing to say. Details are the good bits.
So I got married when I was 28 years old, which seems like a reasonable age for somebody to make a really well-chosen decision in getting married. I was in an on and off again relationship, and we just thought that would be the saving grace for the relationship is to get married, right? Mm-hmm. And we did. We were married for 11 months before we separated. A couple of months after we separated, he was in a pretty significant car accident, mm-hmm. and we had planned to divorce, but I thought I was going to lose him, and it changed everything. We started spending time together as he was recovering from the car accident, mm-hmm. and that's when I got pregnant.
Okay. So how did you feel when you found out?
It was a surprise. I was shocked, and I think the hardest part for me was telling my family. They weren't real happy with the relationship anyways, and they were kind of glad that it was ending, and I hadn't really told anybody that we were still seeing each other. So I had a lot of shame on a lot of levels from that pregnancy. But I was pregnant, and everything was looking great. It was my first pregnancy ever. I had no idea that anything bad could happen at that time. I went in for a regular appointment at 14 weeks, just took an hour off of work. I was a restaurant manager then, and I had to tell all my employees because we had to move tables. We had a lot of stuff going on that was physical, and
you weren't able to do any of that, right?
I wasn't able to do any of that.
Sorry, I can't lift that banquette for you.
Exactly. But, I went in for the regular appointment, just took an hour off of work to run in there and do my appointment, and there was no heartbeat. So I lost the baby, and then I was devastated. You feel like if I had been happier about this pregnancy, would it have stayed? I think that I think we put so many self-guilt on miscarriages.
Yes.
Like, what did I do?
Yes. I want to talk about that as you talk about, more of your story too. Yeah. Not only the guilt that women feel, but the shame. that they feel, and hopefully we can try to eradicate some of that. It's such a thing that women do to themselves in general, and it's just adding insult to injury, you know, when you're going through a hard time, but it's so common. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's true. So after the miscarriage, I found out it was a partial molar pregnancy. So
what does that mean?
It's when part of the pregnancy turns cystic. So in my case, I had a heartbeat, so the fetus was fine, but the placenta turns cystic.
Okay.
Which basically stops it from providing nutrients to the baby. It is a genetic fluke. I found out later, which I'm kind of skipping around, when I married my second husband and went to the doctor to see if I could get pregnant, see if it was something to worry about. Then I found out it was just like a 1 in a million things.
Really?
It will never occur again, or most likely won't occur again. It's not, if it happened once, it's going to happen again.
It's so crazy how there's so many of those things that are like 1 in a million, 1 in 400,000, like all these things that can possibly go wrong that you never know about until you're going through it or a friend of yours is going through it. That continues to baffle me. And the more conversations I have with women, the more I'm like, what's that? I've never heard of that. I don't know anything about anything, I realize.
Right. And I think when we go through infertility like this, we in some ways become medical experts in things that we never planned to be experts in.
Yeah.
So about 6 months after that pregnancy ended, I was back to restaurant management. I was living the high life. I was dating one of my servers, which is like a total no-no. He was 20. He was really cute.
Oh, get it, girl.
I got pregnant again, which was once again a total shock. How can somebody in my late 20s accidentally get pregnant twice in a row?
It happens.
It was okay, so talk about shame. I mean, it was just, at this point, I'd already gone through this whole thing where I had to tell my parents, and it was just so devastating. And now I was pregnant again, and I couldn't emotionally handle it. I couldn't deal with the shame. And I had an elective abortion when I was probably 8 weeks pregnant.
Okay. Did you tell the guy? Was he a part of this?
Yes, he knew.
Okay.
Yeah, he knew. My sister was the only other person I told, and she took me, and it was scary, and it was awful, and I wish I could go back and like hug myself, dealing with all of that.
I just got full body chills, which I'm sure it happens to me a lot.
But it was just so tough. I wish I could just go back and kind of help that Alison get through this. But
because you were just being so hard on yourself. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine telling anybody else that I was pregnant again.
Honey.
I know, it's just so
I want to give you a hug too.
Let's all go back and hug 29-year-old
we all need
Alison.
to hug our former selves.
So after that, I didn't really think about, hey, I can't wait to get married and have a child. At that age, 30, I was just like, I'm never getting married again. I'm just going to live my life and do whatever. I wasn't 100% sold that one day I'm going to have a family. I was really just, whatever was happening, And I would like to say I met Ken, who is my current husband, in 2006, but I actually met him a few years earlier at the restaurant that I was managing. He was one of the regulars that came in all the time. We knew each other for several years before we actually started dating.
Okay.
He's so awesome.
Was it one of those things where later you were like, I had a crush on you? And
exactly.
I'm sure he was smitten with you the minute. Your personality is so magnetic. I mean, I just met you two a couple of days ago, and I'm like, I think we're best friends now. I don't know. I mean, you're just like one of my favorite people. Like you have this smile that lights up the room, and you're just so comfortable to be around. So I get it.
He was, of course he was really handsome, but he was also just really smart and funny, and I always enjoyed his presence. So anyway, we started dating in 2006. A mutual friend said, you guys will probably like each other. So we started talking on MySpace.
MySpace.
Remember MySpace? It's serious business.
Yes, for the millennials listening, if there are any. I was actually never into MySpace. I kind of missed that window, but it was like what was it even? Like a message board?
You kind of had a profile. It was kind of like Facebook.
Okay.
It's Facebook for old people.
I sound like a grandma.
Yeah. So anyway, we started talking there. We had both been married before. We dated long distance. He lived 2 hours away from where I lived in Atlanta. We dated long distance for 1.5 years, and then we got married.
Okay.
But we were pretty sure, like on our first date, that we were just
What was your first
gonna
date?
be together forever. I drove up to Atlanta to where he lived, and we hung out by the pool.
Okay. Nice.
It was a nice summer day. We hung out by the
dreamy.
pool and just talked.
Yeah.
And then went and had dinner.
Okay.
And I promised myself I would not spend the night. I was like, I'm not
Yeah.
spending the night. And I had 3 friends that we were talking about. I was like, I'm not spending the night. I'm coming home. And
Right.
I spent the night.
Did you do the trick where you like don't shave your legs so that you're not tempted to like?
That's a great trick.
Yeah.
No, I didn't do that. I
Okay.
should maybe I wouldn't have spent
Yeah.
the night if I had not shaved them. But anyway, so we were, 100% sure that we were going to be together. We got married 1.5 years later. Mm-hmm. He brought out this feeling of wanting to be a parent in me.
Oh.
It's like from the beginning.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? What was it about him?
It felt like the relationship was just so good. We practiced really hard at getting our communication right, just in the dating phase. But I felt like he really saw me, and he loved me, for who I was, and I felt the same way about him. And it just exploded. Okay, so we should have babies.
Okay. So did you talk about having kids right
Yeah.
away, and
Yeah.
you knew you wanted to?
Yeah, we actually started trying a little bit before we got married. I went and saw the doctor that I had been with when I had my first miscarriage, just to have a checkup and see if there was anything that I needed to look out for. And we talked a bit about the partial molar pregnancy. He said no big deal. It shouldn't be a problem at all. So we got married in Easter. I think that year it was in March. And I was pregnant in like three months
Okay.
later. So we started trying, and I got pregnant right away.
Did you tell him about the server and what had happened with that?
Yes.
You did, okay.
Yeah, that was one of the conversations that we had, like when we were newly dating, and one of those things that I just dreaded having that conversation.
Yeah.
Because I was like, if he can see that Alison, he's going to dump me.
No.
If he can see, but that's
how you
I
felt,
had
though.
so much shame. It's the shame,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But he was great.
Yeah.
He was understanding, and he held me, let me cry.
Right.
And
Oh. And you
Yeah.
could have never told him. I'm sure there's people out there that have secrets from their spouses that never come to light. But the fact that you did,
I
I
didn't
think
feel like
speaks volumes about your communication and your relationship.
I felt like I couldn't let him love me fully and love him fully back if he didn't know everything about me.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was willing to take a chance. And it worked. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because I would have sucked. So anyway, I got pregnant like just 3 months after we were trying, and we found out during that time that we were going to be moving to New York.
Okay.
He had changed
So
jobs.
you were in Atlanta?
We were in Atlanta.
Okay.
He had changed jobs. We were going to be moving to New York. I gave notice in my restaurant management job. I was like, now I'm pregnant and we're moving, so I'm just going to wrap this up, even though we had a few months before we left. I also had a lot of guilt that my job was part of the reason that I had the miscarriage, too.
Because you had been working so hard? You
Yeah.
felt like you'd been...
Like I
Okay,
shook it
there's-
loose somehow. I
Yes.
mean, it's just, you find all the things to blame it on.
Sure.
But, it's just a very active work. And,
Right. Like
you know,
I shouldn't have pushed myself so hard. I should have
you're like
rested.
60 to 80 hours a week, and you're on your feet the whole time, and 12-hour days. It's just a lot. So as soon as I found out, I quit the job. We're moving to New York. I had a miscarriage at 8 weeks.
How did you find out?
I started bleeding.
Okay.
At that stage, I didn't really have a doctor that I was seeing in Atlanta about getting pregnant. I still had the OBGYN in Columbus, but I hadn't moved forward with that process in Atlanta. And so I found this doctor I'd never seen before. I went in, they tested, they looked, there's no pregnancy, we can see you're bleeding. They thought that they saw something in my uterus that was making it. Now that I know more, maybe they thought it was like a bicornate uterus. So they sent me to do a couple of tests. One of them was the HSG that I'm not going to try to say the long word for because it's just way too many letters. I'll totally boggle it. But that's the one where they put the dye in your fallopian tubes and you do the X-ray.
Right.
So they went ahead and did that test, which is usually one of the first tests that they do when you're going through infertility treatments, just to make sure that you have open tubes and there's no infection. But I passed the test.
Okay.
There was nothing there. I think it was just maybe the lining of my uterus, releasing the pregnancy just made it look in a different shape. Turns out that was not the case. I started, trying to get pregnant again right away, and this was actually during our move to New York. I got pregnant again a couple of months later. We were up here looking for a place, an apartment. We were staying in a hotel. We were here for a week looking for apartments, and I was about 10 weeks along at this point. So this is I guess technically fourth pregnancy.
Okay, so you, just to backtrack, you hadn't used any infertility anything at this point. You just got pregnant naturally. Okay.
So we were up here looking at apartments, and I started spotting. And Ken was at work.
That is the worst feeling in the entire world.
It's awful. And I called the doctor from the hotel, and I'm like, hey, I'm spotting. And for anybody that's kind of gone through this, it's like the same questions that they ask you all the time. Is the blood brown or is it red? Well, brown blood is old blood. So that's not so much to worry about.
Okay, so brown
if it gets pink or red, then we should worry.
Yeah.
So it was brown at first.
Okay,
and then
so you're like, all right, I shouldn't.
Pink, and then it got red, and then I started having cramping.
Oh.
And we went to the old St. Vincent's Hospital.
Okay.
It's on 7th Ave.
Sure.
And went into the ER there. That's what my doctor told us to do. And they could still see a heartbeat, but I was bleeding.
Oh.
And by the time we got back to Atlanta, I had lost the pregnancy. Oh, but there's just not much they can do at that early to keep it in.
Yeah. I remember that feeling in early pregnancies with me going to the bathroom and to pee and wiping and being like, please no blood, please no blood, please no blood. And then and you'd be like, fuck. It's just your heart just sinks.
Or the worst is the toilet paper gets a little wet and you can see the pinkness of your finger through the toilet paper.
Yeah.
And you're like,
wait, is that?
Is that pink?
And I also remember, sorry to bring it back to me, but just on the same note, I remember calling my doctor's office and said, I'm pregnant, I'm probably 8 weeks along and I'm bleeding. And the woman was like, you're probably having a miscarriage. And the way she said it, I was just like, well, that's it? Like a little bedside manner here? It was just so, she probably dealt with dozens of those a day, if not more. And I was just like, oh, okay. Okay.
In that particular pregnancy, too, they wouldn't let me come into the OB to get checked until I was 12 weeks. And that's another thing that happens a lot. They don't want to see you until you're 12 weeks along. But for somebody that's experienced recurrent loss, those 12 weeks, you're just stressing yourself so hard, They just let you come in and see a heartbeat or no heartbeat. I don't know. I don't know what exactly I want. But more.
Yes.
More than just a 12-week visit.
Right.
So then we decided, well, our OB recommended that we see a reproductive endocrinologist. And since we were moving to New York, we decided to wait until we got up here to start that relationship because we knew it would be a long one. So we wanted to make sure that we were someplace that we were going to be for a while. So we moved a few months later and looked at our insurance coverage and picked a provider in the city that was covered by our insurance. And went to the RE, and they did all of the tests that they usually do. They didn't find anything of concern for me. I had the single MTHFR mutation, which is very common. I think it's like 50% of the population has it, but it can cause some clotting disorders. They found that, and Ken had no problems at all. His sperm count was good. He was very excited about his sperm count. I love that guy. He had so much fun every time he had to give a sample. It's like he's a trooper. But anyway, so we passed everything. We had to do a few IUIs before we can move on to IVF.
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit. It's an insurance thing, right? If your insurance is kicking in for this, then you have to do, is it 3 IUIs before you can move on to IVF, which So I think it's kind of bullshit,
it
right?
totally is bullshit, right?
They're like, can you just do 3 all at once? Or like, can I come 3 days in a row just to get it over with?
Just to get it over with.
I don't know. IUIs, I know they do work in some cases, but I think the percentage is pretty low, the success rate. I'm just guessing, and from what people I've talked to. Is that right? Now that you're a doula and you know?
Yes.
Okay.
But you're right. They do.
It does work in
sometimes.
certain cases, and I
sometimes.
do have personal friends that it has worked for, thankfully, but it's not very common that it does.
And at that time, I didn't know anything about this stuff, so I was just sure as soon as they, shot the sperm through my cervix, I was going to be pregnant.
Well,
I'm like, this is magic.
The way that somebody explained an IUI to me was like, they wash the sperm and they keep the best ones and then they put it right in at the right time, and it was like, oh, duh, it's going to work. It sounds so easy.
They're delivering it right to the place
exactly.
that it's supposed to be.
In theory, it seems foolproof.
Right. It's brilliant. Well, it did not work for me.
Okay.
We found out after, after our third IUI, we knew that our company, or the company my husband works for, was changing insurance groups, like company-wide. So we were going to be taking on a new insurance policy, which it turned out to be great for us because in that way we could have renewed fertility benefits.
Okay.
So it was a good thing, but we weren't able to stay with the same reproductive endocrinologist,
Gotcha.
which was scary because we knew her and we liked her and didn't really want to change. We had a vacation planned at that time. It was right after our third IUI failed, and we went to Europe and kind of bounced around a little bit. We went to Paris and Zurich and Amsterdam, and as soon as we got back from that, I found out I was pregnant again.
Okay, so naturally.
So I had naturally again after all those IUIs.
Right.
A vacation baby.
Vacation baby.
Right, as all of us our infertility family knows. Everybody says, if you just relax, take a vacation.
I know, everybody's like,
So what
the
happened?
minute you stop trying, you're going to get knocked up. If I had $1 for every time I heard that.
Right? So I had a vacation baby. I was pregnant. We came back and went straight. Once we found out that I was pregnant, we went straight back to the original reproductive endocrinologist because she had mentioned that maybe when we moved to the next reproductive endocrinologist that we should start IVF with PGS, which was genetic testing of the embryos, and maybe try a blood thinner. She had mentioned that. It was like our final meeting. So as soon as we got back, I found out I was pregnant. I called her up. I was like, I need the blood thinners. I need them now. I'm pregnant, and I want to get them right away. She was kind of like, well, wait a minute. We should really do this before you get pregnant. I'm not sure they're going to work at this stage. And I was like, I don't care. Give me the shots. I want them now. And she did. She wrote a prescription. And I did, I don't know, like a week maybe of Lovenox shots, which is
and that was supposed to prevent the spotting?
They were hoping it would prevent a miscarriage.
Okay.
But it didn't. So again, 8 weeks, I had another miscarriage.
Okay.
So we already had our appointment with the new reproductive endocrinologist, and we went over there, and she looked at all of our paperwork, and she was like, there's no reason this should not work for you. This genetic testing of the embryos has got to be the right thing. That must be what we needed to do all along.
Right.
Let's do it. So we did our first IVF April of 2011.
Okay.
So April of 2011, we did our first IVF with genetic testing of the embryos with PGS. We got a great number of eggs. We had a great number of fertilized embryos. After genetic testing, only 3 were normal. They recommended transferring 2 and freezing 1. So we transferred 2, and we had no pregnancy, not even a blip.
Okay.
We went on to a second IVF with PGS. It's like,
how long were you waiting between the cycles?
so the first one was in April. We did the second one in July. So there's a few months in between there.
Okay.
I don't remember there being a reason.
Can I ask you too, how are you doing emotionally with all of this?
And
how are you and your husband getting along? Did it have any?
Not great.
Yeah.
I was very sensitive to the hormone medication that we use for IVF. My mood was angry instead of sad. I feel more comfortable with anger. So I spent a lot of time in anger. which is not good for any relationship. But I was
Were you mad? Who were you mad at, or what? Just the situation?
I was
were you
mad
mad at yourself? Were you mad at him?
I was mad at life. I was mad at me. I was mad. I mean, he hadn't done anything wrong. I was mad at him for random things, like leaving his towel on the floor. But, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that, the emotions that I feel thinking back there is like, why me? What did I do?
Yes.
Why am I having to go through all of this?
I keep hearing this. It's so common. I felt the same way.
And also, you know, from the shame of the abortion that I had, I really thought that maybe this was my punishment. I'm not a religious person, so I don't know why. You know, that I thought.
No, I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, it was karma for me. You know, this was happening to me because this is what I deserved, and that's
so intense.
That's where I was. I was so mad about it. Yeah.
Were you hoping wishing that you hadn't done that, or if you could change the past, like that whole mindset? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we think about, you know, changing the past. If we could go back and do it again with our current, you know, maturity level, then we would have made different choices.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, you can't do that. Sometimes I guess it would be cool, but if I had, then I wouldn't have met Ken.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's just like, you know, it's.
So how did you deal with it? Did you start seeing a therapist, or how did you cope?
I was seeing a therapist who was not the right fit, but I had found her before I started the IVF. I continued with her, just kind of, I mean, if anybody out there has ever tried to find a therapist before, it's not easy. I mean, first you're trying to find somebody. It is.
It takes a few times. Yeah.
You're like trying to find somebody that takes your insurance, and then you're calling and leaving voicemails for them because they can't answer their phone, you know, because so you're doing all of this back and forth. You've got to really, really want it to follow up. And I felt like I was in such a vulnerable position at that point that I just didn't want to change. But I saw her. I did acupuncture too.
Wait, I have a quick therapy story. I was seeing a therapist at one point. I don't want to blow up this person's spot, so I won't give too many details about when, but at one point I was telling the story. It wasn't about infertility. It was about something else. The therapist rolled his or her eyes, and I was like, did you just roll your eyes while I was talking? And they were like, sorry. And I was like, oh my God, isn't that like against everything you're supposed to be doing?
The whole job is not rolling your eyes.
It was so awkward, and I felt like such a jerk, and I was so embarrassed. And then I actually continued seeing that person, the same person, but it was like one of those moments where I was like, oh my God, am I boring you? I'm sorry.
You have some place to be. The worst.
Let me rip up this $250 check then. Yeah.
Right, here's my money anyway. But yeah, so I was trying to do some self-care things. You know, I think that a lot of times we try to do things to take care of ourselves, and it's a lot harder than we imagine it to be. And I was in appointment overload too, with just the reproductive endocrinologist. That adding in like a therapy appointment and an acupuncture appointment, it's just like, I don't want to go anywhere else today.
Right.
I mean, how many appointments am I supposed to have?
Yes.
And
if you're getting stressed, I remember my acupuncturist said this to me too, that if you're stressed about coming to get acupuncture done and squeeze it into your schedule, then it's having the opposite effect.
Right, it's not going to work for you.
Right. Yeah, but that's a good thing that you brought up. It's tricky balancing all these appointments and the doctor's appointments and the blood work and the this and the that and trying to manage your stress level and working and, you know, people might have other kids at home and being a good partner to, you know, it's just... There's so much you have to balance, and something is bound to go by the wayside.
Yeah. But no, Ken and I were struggling. You asked about how our marriage was too. Ken and I were struggling. He was trying to be very patient with me, but I was mad at the whole world.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fertility treatments he was watching me go through them, and there wasn't really much that he could do to help, really, you know, and it's got to be really hard for a partner to watch the person they love go through this process and feel so helpless.
Yes.
And when we got to, for our we were approaching our third IVF, and our reproductive endocrinologist suggested that we try something different. She recommended that we see a reproductive immunologist to look for any underlying autoimmune issues that could be interfering with the pregnancy.
Okay.
So we went to see this famous reproductive immunologist here in New
Who's
York
somewhat
City.
Controversial, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, not all reproductive.
Tell me about that.
Not all reproductive endocrinologists believe that miscarriages are necessarily autoimmune related.
Okay.
Some do, obviously. Mine sent me to this doctor. She's very well respected in her field. But he did an autoimmune workup on me, which was a lot of blood tests. And then also he sent me for ultrasound to look for any signs of PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. My tests came back that I had high natural killer cells.
Sounds like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Right. He was
Hi,
like,
natural killer cells.
I know. I was kind of
starring
proud
Julia
of
Lewis
them.
and Brad Pitt.
He said to me, he was like, do you get sick very often? And I was like, no. He was like, it's your natural killer cells.
Really?
I'm like, hello.
Okay.
I didn't know I had a superpower, but turns out that's
Wow.
not compatible with pregnancies in my body.
Interesting. Okay.
I also,
So your body was rejecting the pregnancy? Is that what he was?
That's the assumption.
Okay.
Or I guess the next thing to rule out.
Okay.
But he also found that I had DQ alpha 4.1 is some kind of clotting issue that I think my husband and I had a match on.
Okay.
So he wanted to treat for that too, and he found a low-level PCOS, which I didn't have any symptoms of. I ovulate normally and haven't had any of the other symptoms, but he wanted to treat that too. So prior to our third IVF, we started this new medical protocol in addition to all of the IVF drugs.
Right. Because you're not putting your body through enough yet.
That's
so
right.
Bring it on.
So we were adding in, I was taking baby aspirin, metformin, which is a drug that people take with diabetes to help control insulin levels in their bodies, which is part of how PCOS affects your body. So that was for that. Prednisone, which is a steroid. Lovenox shots, which is what the original RE had recommended. But this time we would start them before the transfer. And those would be daily throughout the pregnancy. And he also recommended IVIG infusions, which is a bloodborne product infusion that is supposed to help with the immune system, I guess, help push back the immune system.
Okay. So is that like a blood transfusion kind of thing? Like you're getting an IV or? Okay.
That's exactly what it's like. I laid on a medical table for 3 to 4 hours and had an infusion once a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah. It was tough. But at that point, I would have done anything.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Right?
You want my left
It's like, what do you
leg?
want?
Take
Here,
it.
here, I'll do it. I'll
Yep.
try it. No problem. But anyway, so it was going to be our third IVF. Our insurance benefits were gone. We had used them all. The reproductive immunologist did not take insurance at all. So that would be entirely out of pocket. My husband and I decided that it was going to be our last try at IVF. At the moment, he was ready to move on. He was just like, we need to live our life. We need to do things for ourselves. We need to be ourselves again.
Right.
And I agreed. I think in my mind I was like, let's just get through this IVF.
Right.
And I'm going to agree now, but
Right.
we'll see what happens
Right.
afterwards.
Sure, honey. Whatever you need to hear at this
We'll
point.
figure this out.
Yeah.
But after doing the protocol from the reproductive immunologist, we did the IVF, our third IVF. We had a great number of embryos. Only 2 were normal again. We transferred 2, and I was pregnant with twins.
Okay.
So it was just, it's like, okay, all right, this worked. Maybe that was the magic ticket
Right.
this whole time was
Yes.
this immunologist business. So the good thing about seeing another good thing about seeing the reproductive immunologist was that now I had two doctors. So I was seeing the RE and the RI. So I got an ultrasound in both places.
Okay.
And, at this point, the level of anxiety that I had being pregnant in my first trimester
Yes.
was so high. So any chance I could get to just see a little blip on an ultrasound machine, I'll take it. I don't care if it's the wand or what. Just give it to me.
We were joking the other day when I met you about how I think it was Katie Holmes reportedly had like a ultrasound system at home when she was pregnant with Surrey, and I was like, I want that. How come everybody can't just buy one?
Oh my gosh!
Because you just want to hear that heartbeat. You just want to see that everything's okay.
I would have just laid there all day.
Yeah,
and it takes so long before you
had one at home.
I had one of those
like
Dopplers.
Okay.
That you could buy at Walgreens.
Oh my! Is it for baby ultrasounds? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, it is, and it's not that easy to use.
Yeah.
And so think about that. That's like the worst thing ever. So you've got this thing, you bought it at Walgreens, it was like $19, and you're trying to find your own baby's heartbeat.
Oh my gosh.
With it, which is not easy to find. So I do not recommend going that route.
Right.
I was really stressed out. Every time I pulled it out, it was like, I can't find it.
How often were you doing it?
Oh my, like nightly.
Okay.
Sometimes more.
Right.
I told Ken that I'll just do it when you get home at night. But I'm like watching TV.
You're like secretly doing it in the corner, like
all day long.
Yeah. I get it though. It makes perfect sense. It sounds wild, but it happens.
And you have to wait so long before you can feel them move inside you, and you get that sense of relief once you can feel the baby. But that doesn't happen for weeks. So we were pregnant with twins. We knew we had transferred. We only had two normal, and we knew that one was a boy and one was a girl. So I was going for weekly ultrasounds. We got to 12 weeks, and I started spotting again. And it was the same as we were just talking about. Mm-hmm. It's like it was brown, then it was a little bit pink. It's like I'm an expert at judging color of blood at this point. And I'm like, that's not brown anymore. It's a little more reddish. Mm-hmm. So I had some cramping. I had some bleeding. We went into the doctor and had an ultrasound, and one of the twins no longer had a heartbeat.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. For us, at that point, we felt like twins was a reward. Mm-hmm. It's like, we've been trying so hard, and we finally we're going to have two babies at once. That was just like, oh. Mm-hmm. But the other baby was still doing great.
Okay.
But it was, several weeks we had to wait to figure out who we lost and who was still there. Mm-hmm. And, that was that's so
really tough.
Hard.
Yeah.
Because you want to connect, with them. And it was so hard. But so I was pregnant now, and I had my baby. We marked all of the milestones,
Mm-hmm.
So 16 weeks. We got the anatomy scan at 20. I didn't really feel like it was really going to happen until I got to around 24 weeks. And that's what we call.
And that's a long time.
It's a long time.
That is 6 months.
6 months. That's
to have
6
to be
months.
on the edge of anxiety or have a low level stress for that long.
I laid on my sofa and ate Ben and Jerry's
with your Doppler,
with my
Walgreens wand. I need a visual of this.
Right. And watched television.
Yeah.
I was just so scared I was going to shake
right.
something loose, and I didn't want to feel like I could blame any of it on myself anymore. I'm just like, I'm going to do as little as possible.
Yeah.
So 24 weeks was our big celebration.
Yeah.
That was like, I celebrated that like some people celebrate like peeing on a stick.
Yeah. Is that because at that point, if they're born, they can likely have
live
a good
outside
chance
of the body.
Living outside of, okay.
Yeah.
So that's a big milestone.
That's a big milestone. And
I just got the chills again. My God. The goosies, as Jennifer Lopez says.
Oh, that's so sweet. I've got this picture of me. We were taking pictures of my belly, like with the number of weeks written on the chalkboard behind me. And I've got this picture of me at 24 weeks. with the belly and the 24, and I'm like doing something like with my, like a wink with the some guns,
the gun hands.
Yeah, I was doing something like, yeah, you know. I remember feeling like we did it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, for me, I just didn't trust my body to hold a baby that long, and I felt, you know, as soon as we hit 24 weeks, and then I'm like rushing it. You know, I'm like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Okay, when can she come? I'm ready for her to come now. But after 24 weeks was when I actually started thinking about giving birth, which I had not thought about previously because I felt like I was going to jinx it. Mm-hmm. Isn't that funny how we make all of these little things that are going to jinx it? So we don't talk about it. You know, we hide it. I used to think that, what is that book called? The baby book that everybody gets that has the...
Goodnight Moon?
No, the pregnancy book.
Oh, What to Expect.
Oh my gosh. So I got the What to Expect book, my first pregnancy, and promptly gave it away after the pregnancy was done. And then I got it again for the second time. So I was sure it was the book. That was my other curse. Oh. The book is cursed.
Yes.
Every time I get one of these.
Don't have the book in my house. Right.
Yes, I don't want the book in my house. So I let myself start researching birth and what I wanted to do, what I felt was important to me, my birth.
And you had found out it was a girl?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we found out it was a girl at the 20-week ultrasound.
Okay.
Because we couldn't even do the blood test thing because we still had the other baby that's in there, so it was inconclusive.
Oh, right. Okay.
So we had to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I started doing research on birth and how I wanted to give birth, and quickly found out that my doctor and I were not on the same page of what I wanted to do. I felt like at that time that it was really important for me to try and trust my body to do as much as it could on its own. Mm-hmm. I had a big fear of just hospitals in general, which is really funny that I'm a birth doula now. It turns out if it's not me as the patient, then I'm not at all affected.
Interesting.
But for me,
right.
I was scared of the hospital. So thinking about having an epidural during birth was terrifying to me because then I couldn't leave if I needed to go. Not like you're going to leave in the middle of having, right? It's not like I'm going to get up and run down the hall. But for me, it felt like I would be frozen. And I couldn't,
in case you wanted to get up and walk around or something?
To leave, in case I wanted to leave.
Where are you going?
Nowhere. Okay. But it's specifically in case I wanted to leave.
Okay.
I needed to feel like I could.
Okay.
And that was just like, it was like a terrifying kind of thing to me. I just didn't want to be stuck.
Okay.
To this day, I have never seen anybody leave in the middle of labor. But if you feel like you want to be able to do it, then that's your business, right? You can do whatever you want. But for me, it was scary. So we ended up having a lot of hard conversations. Just my husband and I in the OB. He was very supportive with whatever I wanted to do. She was not really. She thought it was kind of funny.
The doctor.
Yes.
Okay.
Specifically that I didn't want an epidural. She was like, yeah. She had a great sense of humor. I love her. I would love to have coffee with her.
Yeah.
We were not on the same page with birth.
Gotcha.
But so she, kind of joked about it, which hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Because I was dealing with a lot.
Did she know everything that you had been through?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was dealing with a lot of stuff, and we're all just trying to deal with our own things and make our way, right? So it was just really tough to be dismissed like that. But I went into my regular appointment at 38 weeks, and she stripped my membranes. And that means...
What does that mean? No.
So a doctor can do it, or a midwife can do it during a cervical exam. It's if your cervix is a little bit dilated, and they can fit the tip of their finger inside, then they can release the amniotic sac from the top of the cervix, which releases some hormones that sometimes can get labor started.
Oh, cool.
Yes. But she knew I wanted the baby to come. 38 weeks is... not 40 weeks. It's still, it's still, he still counts as full term. But she knew I was ready, and she did it.
Okay.
And I went into labor that afternoon. We had tickets to a Broadway show. It was when Al Pacino was in Glen Ross.
Oh, I saw that. It was very boring.
So I was in labor the whole
I was
show.
going to say, if it was Hamilton, you might want to
Right.
hold off. But I saw that. It was...
I remember nothing. We were way in the back. I was like standing up.
Oh, you went?
Yes, we went.
Oh.
I mean, we had tickets.
Okay.
I was standing. We were like on the second to the back row, and I was like kind of standing up, like swaying in
Was
my
it with
seat.
Liev Schreiber? Wasn't he in it too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so funny. You saw
I
that
did
show.
see that show.
But yeah, so I was in labor at the show. We got home that night, and
What if we were at the same show?
it might have been.
We should look at our calendars later. Okay.
You know, I went to another show recently. We went to see Come From Away.
Okay.
And it's in the same theater.
Okay.
And I
haven't seen
didn't realize it until we walked in, and our seats were in the same section, and I was like, "This is the theater we were in
Oh my
when I was in labor
God.
with Zoe." And Ken was like, "How can you remember that? That was like this. That's impossible." And I looked through my email and
Yeah.
pulled up the tickets, and sure enough, we were like 10 rows in front
The
because we had
universe.
like moved forward. I guess
Yeah.
we can sit 10 rows closer at this point that we could
Right.
back then. But I went and I took a picture of the seats that we were in.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I looked and found them. Anyway, that was a little tangent. So I was in labor at the show. We came home. I felt really nesty. I hadn't made the email to the friends that Ken was supposed to attach the picture to with
Right.
the facts, the weights and the length and the whatever else
Right.
people wanted to know. I hadn't finished putting all the people in there so he could send it for me. So I was like freaking out. And you're like, oh my gosh. And he went to bed. And I stayed up, and contractions got more and more intense, and I got in the bathtub for a little bit and just kind of walked around my house, and he could hear me, like I guess around 5 in the morning. He was like, okay, I'm getting up. And at about 6, I had been timing the contractions, and they were 2 minutes apart, and my water broke like right at 6. So
Wow.
we got in a cab.
Where did it break?
I was laying on the bed, and my feet hit the floor so fast.
Oh, wow.
it was like my body's like, I'm not changing the sheets. So I like jumped out, hit the ground. You got no water on anything but the hardwood floor.
See, I had 2 C-sections, so I never had the water breaking experience. I'm kind of envious of people who did because it sounds so cool.
It sounds so exciting.
There's always
right?
a good story attached.
Yeah. I think because I had been in labor for a while that it broke with a lot of intensity. It doesn't always do that. Sometimes it's just a trickle, and you miss that like TV moment of like the
Right.
We went to the hospital. We left for the hospital about 6 a.m. in a taxi, and Zoe was born around noon.
Oh, Zoe! Yay!
Zoe made her grand entrance.
Yes. So how old is Zoe now?
Zoe's 6.
Okay.
Yep, she turned 6 in October.
Okay. Hooray!
I know. She is so cool.
Yeah.
She's like a little fairy person. She has the biggest imagination. She
Aw.
loves to sing and dance. She's just all happiness.
What if she's in a show in that very theater in like 20 years? that would be cool, right? Yes. I don't want to gloss over Zoe because she is incredible, but there's more to your story. Can you tell me what happened after that?
Yes. So I had Zoe when I was, if you're keeping up with ages at this point, I was 39 when Zoe was born.
Okay.
My doctor had told us if we wanted to have another baby that we should get started right away because we just didn't know how long it was going to take. You know, at that point it had taken us 5 years from when we first started trying. And that's not even including how long ago I had the first miscarriage, just 5 years.
Right.
With Ken and I trying.
Yeah.
So we knew we had the one frozen embryo from my first IVF cycle in the freezer. So she was like, let's just transfer that one and see what happens, and then we'll move forward with more IVFs. So I weaned Zoe, which is like the hardest thing ever. I was really looking forward to breastfeeding. We had a really hard breastfeeding journey already, but they wanted me to be completely done breastfeeding by the time she was 6 months old so we could transfer the embryo.
Gotcha.
That was the suggestion.
Yes.
So I weaned her when she was 4 months.
Did you see
heartbreaking.
speaking of breastfeeding, did you watch the Serena Williams documentary
did.
on HBO? If anyone listening hasn't watched it, it is so good. I have so much respect for her, and her husband is amazing, but there's a whole storyline about her having to wean her daughter from breastfeeding because she's not losing enough weight to get back into tennis, and it's so gut-wrenching, and she doesn't want to do it, and her coach wants her to stop, and oh my gosh, that was so interesting.
So
and she
hard.
finally just had to stop breastfeeding against her will and to get back into tennis, and that was I'm so glad that she was so open about that, because I hadn't, you have no idea what people are going through, and that was I thought that was very cool.
Yeah,
So
I
watch
love
it, people, if you haven't yet. It's so good.
great.
It's called Being Serena, I think.
Well, yeah, so I weaned Zoe and transferred the embryo. Well, I guess I should say, I weaned Zoe at 4 months. We went back to the reproductive immunologist to do autoimmune testing again.
Okay.
My testing was a lot better than it had been before. The doctor said that sometimes a pregnancy can restart your immune system. I have no idea how that works.
Yeah, that's cool.
But that's what he said. So he still put me on some of the medications from before. We did the baby aspirin again, the metformin, and the Lovenox, which were the daily blood thinner shots. And instead of the IVIG infusions, we did something else called intralipids,
Okay.
which is the same kind of thing, but it's IVIG light.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
scientists out there are going to be like, okay, lady, that's not exactly how it works.
This is not a medical show.
That's how I saw it.
Yeah. This is just
IVIG
girlfriends
light.
talking.
Right.
We don't know what we're talking about.
So I only had to do an infusion before the transfer and then one after the transfer, and then that was it.
Okay.
So I didn't have to go back once a month. But so we transferred that embryo in there, and lo and behold, it stuck,
Yes.
which was a shock.
Yeah.
I still can't believe it.
Yes.
After all of these things.
All right. Chills again.
Right. Oh, gosh.
I
But
need like a
that's-
chills counter on like these conversations.
Chillometer.
Yeah, chillometer. Full chills.
But that was Kenny. We called him Ice Baby.
Yes.
For many, many years as he sat in the freezer. But he's 5 now.
Okay. Yay.
And he is full of spunk. He's got a lot of my wildness and hard-headedness.
Okay.
Which is making it challenging to be his mom. But
Yeah.
my mother keeps saying, yeah, this is
Yeah.
what you get. So I get it.
Yeah.
But he has the sweetest smile. And when
Yeah.
he loves so hard.
Oh.
So he's just a joy to be his mom.
Yeah.
So I got pregnant with Kenny when Zoe was 6 months old.
Wow.
Yeah. So the next couple of years are just a blur. I have no idea what happened after that. I really have no idea. In my mind, we stayed inside for like a full year. Like it didn't even leave. But I know that didn't happen. That's the way it feels.
You're like, I woke up under a pile of diapers and
Yeah.
Trump was president.
Yes. What happened?
Oh, that's so good. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for getting into all those details and sharing all that stuff. I want to take a pause, and then we're going to come back and answer some questions that we've gotten about being a doula.
Awesome.
So I want to talk
I
about
can't
that
wait to hear
too.
them.
So we're going to pause it right now. Okay, so we're back with some doula-related questions for Alison. First, I want to know, how did you get into being a doula?
Yeah. Well, I told you when I was pregnant with Zoe, like around 24 weeks, I started just inhaling birth stuff. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything really about birth. I had been to 2 births at that point. Two of my sister's kids. I had been there and been her doula,
Okay.
which was
Like unofficial, not certified?
That's
like,
exactly
okay.
right. Yep. And it was such an amazing experience. I just loved. It's kind of like the infertility thing. We become experts at what we are going through.
Right.
So to me, it was just like I couldn't get enough of it, and I was absorbing all of the stuff, and I wanted to help other people kind of walk through this with them and
Okay.
be their support. Mm-hmm. So when Kenny was 2, I went to doula training.
Okay.
I trained here in New York, in Brooklyn, with an international doula company. It's called Doula Trainings International. They do a 3-day workshop. So you're there for 8 hours for 3 days.
Okay.
And then you have a 9-month certification period where you work with a mentor and you have to do reading. I think we had like 8 books that were on a required reading list. We had to participate in lactation training, childbirth education. We also had to have 3 birth clients that reviewed us so we could turn it in with our certification packet. And my certification is birth and postpartum doula. So I had to have clients, postpartum doula clients too, review me and then send that in with my packet. So overall it was like 3 days intensive and then a 9-month program. During that time too, we also had to attend several other classes that were provided by the doula training company that were online.
One of the questions we got from on Instagram from Baby Snowflake Sus is, at what point does a doula get involved in a pregnancy?
Well, because of my experience with infertility, I also work with people that are going through fertility treatments. So not all doulas work in that area too, but for me, I can work with somebody while they're doing fertility treatments all the way through to when they're having
That's so great.
a baby.
Yeah.
So just establishing that trust from the beginning.
Right.
And kind of walking
having
through
gone
that
through it
together.
yourself, I bet that makes them feel so much more comfortable. And that's so cool that you do that.
And I have such a passion for helping people over that transition from, I've been doing fertility treatments, now I'm pregnant, what the fuck?
Right.
What do I do now?
Right.
So I love helping people, over that threshold, I guess I could say. But, a lot of doulas that don't do the fertility work may start working with somebody anywhere from the first trimester to right before they give birth. It really just depends. I'd say most times we get hired in second trimester. So once the pregnancy is, past the first trimester, and then they're looking for more support.
And you don't have to answer specifically, but Nin Tiz too, who's actually my mom, sent a question. Hi, Mom. I love you. She sent a question, and she just said, ballpark, like, how much money? Is it really expensive? Like, can anybody have a doula? Is there, like, a sliding scale? I mean, I don't know anything about it, so you don't have to say what your fee is.
All of the above.
Okay. Yeah.
Here in New York City, I would say the range, maybe for a doula in training, maybe 800, and it goes all the way up to 3,000 and beyond.
Depending on specifically what you're doing, and I would imagine everybody's
experience.
So it seems like if somebody wants to go that route, there's a way for them to make it happen. That's good.
In some communities, there are even hospital doulas.
Another question from Fab Fertility on Instagram is, what's the most common misconception about doulas?
That we're there to take this place of the partner.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Okay. Because somebody else had asked, does the partner feel left out? So how can you explain that relationship? How does it all work together with the partner and the mom?
Well, the way that I approach this is that I think the connection between the partners, the birthing partners, that's the strongest connection. That's who they want to be with. When the shit hits the fan, you want your partner there with you. So I do whatever I can to help the partner be able to be there. So, I take care of mom or whoever the birthing person is, but I also take care of the partner. Make sure they've had something to eat. Make sure that they know when it's okay to rest. Talking through what's going on and setting, expectations or managing anxieties. And that way they're both able to be there just focusing on the baby that's coming without having to worry about all the peripheral nonsense that's going on. So, but I will never have that connection with the birthing person that their partner will have. That's the special, that's the magic. Right? So just making sure that they can be there together.
Somebody else asked, what's something easy that TTC, like trying to conceive, women can integrate into their everyday routine to achieve Zen? Do you have any?
Wow. We've been looking for Zen for a long time. I guess the best advice I can give there is self-care. I mean, that's the hardest thing for all of us to do, is to carve out time to take care of ourselves. Just being busy, but self-care looks different for everybody. Just finding what it is that you can do that makes you feel like you're taking care of yourself. That's the best thing.
It's like putting on your oxygen mask
before. Right. I love that analogy. You put yours on.
You have to be good to bring another life.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you so much. You almost make me I want you as my doula. Can you just be my doula but not have a baby? Can you help me?
Yes. Well, that's what I
never
do
having another child.
fertility clients. You know, we're just in the beginning.
Yeah. You're so amazing. And I'm going to tell
Thanks.
everybody where they can find you and learn more about you and what you do at the end. But thank you so much for doing this.
Oh,
this has been so great.
Me. It was so fun.
Good. Thank you. Hi again, guys. Thank you for listening. Isn't she the best? Oh, I love her. I want her to be on every episode. Anyway, I am so grateful for everybody passing these episodes around, sending me emails with feedback, and for tuning in. This is important stuff, I think, and it needs to be talked about. So if you are listening and you have a story that you want to share, email me at infertileafstories@gmail.com or check out my Instagram at infertileafstories. And we have a lot more great content coming up. So many good episodes, so many good interviews. So thanks for sticking with me, and I will talk to you next time.